Hello, my name is David Webb, and this is a video for Dweebovision. I am a Scrabble grandmaster, and in this video I am going to play Scrabble while providing in-game commentary on my moves. Hopefully this will help to improve your game, and be fun to watch. The game has just started, so let's join the action. It's me to go first. Now, this looks close to a bingo, and through some floaters I would certainly have an 8-letter bingo, such as optional or potional, but do I have a 7? Well, I don't think I do. It's not a particularly bingo-y set of letters. There's no fabulous 4 or 5-letter subset of these tiles that I'd like to retain, so I think I will maximise my score. Now I do have the X for score, but this is not a balanced rack. I have only one vowel. And the X generally benefits from having more vowels. But there are vowels that I've played in Paoli, so hopefully I should be able to play through this. Well, my opponent certainly does have vowels. Now our, for future reference, does take a P in front. So what can I do with this rack? I do want to play the X off in order to maximise the score. Well, nothing is immediately coming to mind. Well, I could play OXO in column 6, but I don't want to leave myself with 5 consonants. I could play LOX in rows G or I. Or I could keep my X and play TOLD. I do have 5 consonants which don't really go well together, the DLT, N and R, and this plays off a number of them. It keeps the X for score. It doesn't provide many openings for my opponent. Well, my vowel shortage continues. But I do have 1, so it's unlikely that I will be changing. But again, this is so far from being a bingo that it's not a priority to play off the X. And I do have scoring tiles this time in the H and the M. The board is pretty blocked, but that's fine for me because I do not have a bingo-y rack, so I don't want my opponent to be zooming off into the distance, which he has just done. Well, he has provided some vowels. Now I need to decide if leering takes an S. I don't think it does, but I'm not sure. Now, what can I play through leering? I'd like to place my X beneath the I and get the word doubled. Can't see a way of doing that. I could play Nix, N-I-X, at 18 points. It's not very good. And I'd like to sort out the duplicate N. I could place my H or my M on the triple letter square above the second E of leering. So I could play Hox 45 points, that's a good score. It's a pretty poor rack leave, but I think the score justifies it. Wow, I have remnant and man rent. Not sure there's anywhere. Well, I can play them in row E because THE is good. Both of those play there. Well, that was a stroke of good fortune. Keeping MNNT was quite an unpromising rack leave, but sometimes you get lucky. I'm looking around to see if there's anywhere else I can play a bingo, and I'm looking at LI in column 8 to see if I've got a 9-letter word. Can't see one. And I've also got XI for words beginning EXI. Can't see a word there, and there's also column 11 through the OR, where there's a possibility of a double-double. Okay, well I can't see anything, so at the moment I'm just looking at remnant and man rent in row E. My opponent has taken a while over his move. He may have a tricky rack or be looking for a bingo. I'm wondering if I have a bingo through the G of leering, but I don't think I do. Hour just takes a P in front and told takes nothing in front. Odd takes an A and an E after it, but Arl only takes an S, so my bingos don't play in row J. Well, that has scuppered my planned bingo. Do I have an alternative? The only way I would have an alternative would be through either the T or the second I of Tory I. Now, certainly nothing through the T. What about the I? So that would be train men. And it goes. Wow. That is fortunate. I think this is the only bingo on this board. And I'm back to a vowel shortage, no vowels at all. I do have the Y, which is a proxy vowel. Great, my opponent is challenged and loses 5 points. Now, this isn't an automatic change. I do have the word dry on my rack. So if I could get about 20 points for that, that would be better than changing. I'm a long way from a bingo, so it's not a priority to play off the Z, because that's a good scoring tile. Now through W and E I would have QWERTY. I don't think that's going to be available. And I haven't seen anywhere good for dry yet. The Tory I play has really closed down the top of the board, and hour doesn't really open up the top left either, unless you have a P. So this is not a wide open board at all, but I have a 70 point or a 50 point lead. My opponent gets 24 points. What do I have? I'd like to play off 3 tiles. Now I note I could play grey in column 14. Only 16 points, and that's keeping 5 consonants. I'd much rather be keeping just 4 consonants. I could play tardy through the T and the A in row E, but that's going to score about 10 points. 9 points even. Now what about playing a dry down here? It takes out that triple letter square, which my opponent could use to good effect. These floaters aren't particularly great. The Y is certainly not a fantastic floater. The R is a good floater, but it's only one floater. And the dry doesn't take an S on the end, so I'm not providing a lot of opportunities for my opponent. So can I do any better than this? Only 12 points, that's pretty poor. Now, my D could go underneath OD in column 6, but dry doesn't play there because LIT doesn't take a Y at the end. I could play adds where I'm playing a dry, but I don't think that would be a good move because it takes an E at the end. Yeah, I think this is okay. It's 12 points. Well, it is only 12 points. Should I be changing? I think I'm going to change because I don't want the Q hanging around on my rack. I've got nowhere to play it, even if I picked up an I. Well, if I picked up an I could play it at J2 or in column 13. But I'd be dependent on picking up an I. 3 I's have been played. Well, this is really tricky. If I did change, what would I keep? TRZ perhaps? Wow, this is a tough decision. I'm going to change. The decisive factor there was getting just 12 points for a dry. Great, I draw 4 vowels. Having kept 3 consonants, I was slightly worried that I might be consonant heavy. I'm not. Now Zootia is good. I have picked up a bingo. I can't see anywhere to play that. And my opponent has not quite obliged, which is a shame. I'm just looking around to be sure that Zootia doesn't play. Can't see where it would go. Okay. Now I'm looking in row B to see if I can place my Z on the triple letter square at B10. I've got the T for going above we. Can't see a way of making that work, which is a shame. Well, I could play Zoot. Rack leave's not too bad. Doesn't provide many openings for my opponent, and it's 40 points. What would be better than this? Well, a better play would be playing just Z-O-O, because the T would really help this rack leave. So can I play Z-O-O anywhere? Well, if I played it in column 14, I'd be providing a good opportunity for my opponent in column 15. Yeah, I can only play that in column 14 by placing the Z at A14. I don't want to do that. So, what else can I do with this Z? I certainly want to play off both O's with it. So I am looking at zoo. Yeah, I think this is the best I can do. I do draw a T. I am slightly vowel heavy, and I don't have a bingo. Through a D I would have fetida. I've got a 70-point lead, but that would evaporate if my opponent bingoed. Column 15 has been open for quite a while with that N in second place for a 9-timer. I may go there myself if it remains available. Or I could play of in row J underneath trained men, making F and Mo for 30 points. That would be pretty good. Now both Y's are unplayed, so putting the Y on the end of Zoot is a hotspot. Great, my opponent's changed, no points for him. Now there's no floaters I need to consider for an 8-letter word. This is what I'm thinking of doing. Of for 30 points. It does open the board up because it opens up row K. In particular, it opens up row K for a 7-letter bingo ending in S. But my rack leave is pretty good. Apart from its vowel heaviness, it's pretty good. Now if I played faux, my rack leave of EIRT would be significantly better. So I'm getting 30 points here. What about playing up here? 23 points. I'm dropping 7 points to drop 1 vowel. I think it's worth it. Yeah, it's quite an opening move because I am opening up row A, because Zo takes an A and a D in front, and I'm leaving open column 15. But look at my rack, EIRT. I've got the inter prefix in column 15. Wow, close. Nearly entirety. If one of my R's had been a T. Can't see anything through that N. I don't have an A or a D for going in front of Zo. So, what do I need to do? Probably play off what I've picked up, which is RYE. I'm looking to see if I can play in column 15 and place my... I was just about to play entry in that spot. Now my opponent's used the second blank, but he's not bingoed. He's only got 45 points, so that's a bit of a let-off. So, what can I do? Now, of course, having said about the zooty spot, I do now have the Y, and I'm able to play off precisely the letters I wanted to play off. 51 points, that is a great riposte to my opponent's 45-point play. And this looks promising. This looks close to a bingo, even though the C and the F together and don't have great synergy. Okay, I can't see a bingo with this. But I do now have some floaters to consider in unbowed. Well, can't see anything there. So, what to do? I'm wondering if I can play in row N. Now, I've only got 6 minutes left. There's 29 tiles left. I'd better speed up. Now, I was looking in row N to see if I could place my C on the triple letter square. Or my F. Can't see a good way of doing that. Now, I could play flu across here. It obstructs the E, which is a useful floater for my opponent. Rack leaves quite good. So do I want to do this? I'm slightly spooked by the amount of time I have left. I don't really like playing off my E, but I do want to play off the F. Only 20 points. Or you could say, well, it's at least 20 points. Now, through an E I would have stricken. I am short of vowels. There are quite a few in the bag. The C and the K do have synergy, so I've got trick. Although I can't see anywhere brilliant to play that. I could play lick through the L of flu, keeping NRST. The K isn't a hugely useful floater for my opponent. Well, I could play clink in column 13 through that L. And given that I do have a lead, it would be helpful to play off more tiles to expedite the end of the game. It would also assist with my time management. And what clink would also achieve would be to close out the bingo lanes I've opened in row K and row M. F takes an E before and after it. So flu was quite an open move. Mind you, there is already a bingo lane in row D for bingos ending with an E. So I haven't been reckless. I've got antic in column 10, but that's not great. Because 3 S's have been have not been played. And I'm thinking of playing antic with the K at the end. Well, there's the spot where I was going to play clink. I can still play clank, but it won't be doubled. Now, I'm looking to see if I can play in row N a word N here ending I-N-K. Or I could just play down here, a play of trick. This is quite nice because the I is a good floater with my NST. 22 points. Well, still fairly short of vowels, but I've got no duplicate letters. I've got the Y for making tricky. This is quite a problematic rack. I do have a 95-point lead, but if my opponent bingos, that shrinks to almost nothing. Now I have got the P for going in front of AUA in column 2. 16 points, there goes one of the S's. So what do I do with this rack? If I could sort out the D and the Y or the P and the Y, what I'd be left with would be quite bingo-y. I'm looking to see if I can stick my Y on the end of trick, but I can't see a way of doing that without providing a good scoring spot for my opponent. Now my Y can go on the end of F in row D. So I could play Piney across here, and I think the P front hook for hour isn't worth hanging on to the P for, because there aren't many bingos with P in such a late position. This plays off a lot of tiles, it takes out a bingo lane. I've got the S for making spiny, so column 5 is a good scoring spot for a short word. DST is quite a bingo-y rack leave. Only 18 points. But this is going to give me a 100-point lead. Ooh, not good at all. Wow, that's an awful pickup. And it's going to be hard to resolve. And I've only got just over 2.5 minutes left. Wow, good score by my opponent, 48 points. He's now less than 50 points behind. Just checking his words, they're all good. Wow, this is just such a hard rack. There's just very few opportunities coming to me, and there certainly are bingo-y tiles, in bingo-y sets of 7 letters left. Very few vowels on the board to play through. Well, I could play vid down here. And that does take out the bingo lanes in rows C and E. Well, the horror continues. I draw the second V, no vowels. The remaining tiles contain even more good bingo sets. And I'm less than a bingo ahead of my opponent. Okay, 2 tiles in the bag, quite bingo-y. Bingo lanes are the trick spot. You're putting an S on the end of trick. That's about it. So what I could do is play Juzz here, which takes out that bingo lane. My opponent doesn't have anything to really take advantage of the J. It's 32 points, which is a good score. Gives me a 60-point lead. And I can now see what my opponent has got. I don't think there are any bingo lanes unless I've overlooked one. Now, what do I do? Well, look for places to play anything at all. I certainly can't do anything with the J. I'm looking at the vowels because I have none. So there's the I of tricks. I could play Vin, 8 points. What else is there? Well, it's hard to believe so few vowels are available. Now, what there is column 14, because MAARE is good. So I'm looking at the bottom parallel to unbowed. Do I have a play which places the R between the E's of flew and koshed? Not sure about TERED, I don't think that's good. Well, DERE is good, so that's one possibility. 15 points. My opponent's got 7 minutes left on his clock. I've got 51 seconds. I've got no words at all on my rack. I have to play through something on the board. I'm looking in column 10 to see if I've got a word beginning HE blank A. Can't see one. So there's the deer spot in column 14, and there's din in row K. Great. My opponent's got just 13 points, and he'll probably go out looking at the tiles that he's got. EINS. He can play snide in column 1. So I don't think I'm too bothered about being stuck with the V, because I think this will be enough to win, and I won't have another chance to play. Now, could my opponent play out slowly to stick me with the V? He could, but I don't think it'll work, because I can just slowly play off my N, R and T. I can play ant in column 10 for 5 points. Or just in row N. Okay, my opponent has played out for 18 points, pass to end the game. And the final score, 351 to my opponent, 381 to me, winning margin of 30 points. So a really close game and some pretty grim racks towards the end. Let's see what I missed. It was me to go first. Well, paolo and polio, alternatives to my play. And probably better ones. AT is a better rack leave than OT, so I think polio was the play there. Surely my opponent had a bingo. Yup, quite a few. Nitrox, I didn't see that. That was playable in column 8 through the eye of Paoli, 21 points. But I think my play of told was fine. Now, Hawks of 45 I think is the best play there, even though the rack leave is poor. I was very fortunate to pick up a bingo. Manrent played, where? Ah, column 10, making MI. That would have been a horrific miss if I hadn't spotted that. I didn't spot it, but I did spot train men for the same number of points. Now, this was a bad rack. Adds for 17, that's no good. Rack leave is awful, including the Q and 4 other consonants, so, and providing a good opening for my opponent, so I think changing here was best. This is where Zootia agonisingly didn't play, and Zoot looks like it was best. End fire in column 15, I didn't consider that. Instead, I played foe for 23 points. So I took a 7-point sacrifice, but I think the rack leave justified it. Rye A14, that was my play. Now this is where I was slightly spooked by the amount of time I had left, and I didn't feel that my play here was optimal. I played flew. That doesn't appear in that list. Clifted, I think, would have been a much better play. 26 points in row N. Yeah, that would have been a better play. And A12 turf. Oh wow, I didn't consider that. Making etui. I'd forgotten about the E front hook for twee. So turf for 35 points. Yeah, I think a number of the plays there are better than the one which I made. N9 skint. Okay, I don't particularly like that. Opens up row O. Instead, what I did was trick for 22. And I think that's probably equivalent and less volatile. Struggled to think of the best thing to do here. All of the plays which add the Y to trick, to make tricky, open up row O. And that's not something which you want to do when you're only one bingo ahead. So I played Piney. Yeah, Piney for only 18 points, but I'm taking out a bingo lane. I think strategically that makes it a better play than the higher scoring one suggested. Nice play by my opponent, 48 points for Kosht. My rack was awful. Yeah, all the possibilities there are very low scoring. So I think vid for 11 is probably similar to all of those, or in fact even better than them, because I suspect most of the plays there do open up bingo lanes. My opponent had the cue, was able to play it for 30 points, and at this point was just 28 points behind. Now, I played Juice at N1, which is better than Just, because Just... Well, I was going to say Just opens up a bingo lane, but it doesn't. It does open up row O across to the triple, but a 7-letter play doesn't go in that spot. Let's see what my opponent had here. Nothing great. He played Dern for 13. He could have played Dern for 34 using the etui hook. Now, well, where I played D-E-R-E, I could have played E-R-E-V, leaving D-N-R-T, so I think E-Rev, although scoring one fewer point, would have been better than Deer, because it would have avoided the count back on the V. And finally, my opponent went out with Snide for 18 points. He could have got 3 more by playing Nides, 1 square lower. So that was a pretty good game. It was good to win, and there were a lot of tough racks, particularly at the end of the game, and I was only a bingo ahead, so a very important consideration in mind was closing down bingo lanes on the board, and that's not always a primary feature. Most of your moves, or most of the moves that I make, are based on score and rack leave, with the board being of very much lesser significance, on the grounds that the board is available to both of us, and as soon as my opponent plays the boards, anything the board offers is advantageous to me. So the board as a factor is not as significant usually as score and rack leave, but in this case towards the end of the game it was, because of the fact that I was only 1 bingo ahead and there were a limited number of bingo lanes on the board and there were bingo-y tiles left. So it was good to demonstrate that with the racks that I had. So an interesting game and a close game, and I think it was quite different to most of the games that I've played. So I hope you got something out of that and enjoyed watching it. My name is David Webb, and this has been a video for Dweebovision.